I knew something was wrong before I knew what it was. It wasn't the money at first. It was Marcus. He started coming home later, not smelling like work, smelling like stress. The kind that settles into a man's shoulders and makes him short-tempered over nothing. I work from home, so I noticed the changes more than most wives would have. I was there when he left, there when he came back. When I asked how his day was, he said fine too quickly. When I asked if he was tired, he snapped, "Can I just sit down for a minute?" So I stopped asking. The money didn't stop showing up. Cash withdrawals that didn't match our bills. Deposits that didn't line up with paydays. As someone who works in billing and compliance, numbers have always spoken louder to me than words, and these numbers were wrong. Bonuses, he said once. Side stuff another time. 14 years of marriage teaches you when not to push. It also teaches you when silence starts costing you peace. I found out on a Tuesday night. My laptop was still open on the kitchen table, invoices half reviewed, compliance notes blinking on the screen. Laundry sat unfolded beside me. His phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I just glanced, and everything changed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. Inventory moved. Same buyer, same price. My heart didn't race. It dropped. I opened the thread. Photos, item list, quantities. Too clean, too organized, too familiar. I sat down slowly, the way I do when I already know the truth, but my mind hasn't caught up yet. Marcus wasn't side hustling. Marcus had been stealing from the company he worked for. Not once, not accidentally, selling inventory, tracking it, covering it. I knew what audits turned into. I just never imagined one living inside my marriage. When Marcus walked through the door, I was still at the table. The phone sat face up between us. He froze, didn't ask what was wrong, didn't pretend, just stared at it like it had already put cuffs on him. "How long?" I asked. He sat down slowly. It wasn't supposed to get like this. Men only say that when the line is already far behind them. "I was going to stop," he said quickly. "I already am." "This is from today," I said. He rubbed his face with both hands. "They don't even miss it," he said. "They underpay me. You know that. That doesn't make this okay." "I did this for us," he said, his voice cracking. "For our future." Then fear slipped through. "They'll ruin my life if they find out," he said. "Everything we have, gone." He leaned forward. "I'll fix it," he said. "I swear I will. I just need time." Then he said the words that locked me into his secret. "Please don't tell anyone." I looked at the man I trusted and realized loving him didn't feel like safety anymore. It felt like a liability, and I didn't know yet that it was already too late. If you've ever loved someone who puts you in an impossible position, stay with me. After that night, the house changed. Nothing was broken, nothing was loud, but everything felt watched. Marcus barely slept. His phone never left his hand. Every sound made him flinch. I kept working. That was the cruel part. I logged into meetings, reviewed accounts, responded to emails about audits and discrepancies while living inside one. Every notification made my chest tighten. I started noticing the way fear rearranges a person. Marcus stopped playing music, stopped laughing, stopped touching me. Not because he didn't want to, but because guilt doesn't know how to be gentle. Did anyone say anything today? He asked every night. No, I said. And every time I said it, I felt myself sinking deeper into something I never agreed to carry. He tried to fix it, moved money around, transferred funds, took burner calls he thought I couldn't hear while I sat 10 feet away on compliance calls of my own. I'm almost done, he told me. Just a little more time. Time. The thing he kept asking for like it was mine to give. I started jumping when the phone rang, freezing when headlights slowed outside the house. One afternoon, while reconciling an account, I noticed a car parked across the street. Same one, 2 days in a row. I told myself I was paranoid. That night, Marcus came home pale. They audited today, he said quietly. I didn't ask questions. I already knew what that word meant. Did they find anything? I asked. Not yet. Yet. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Marcus was already dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. They're closing in, he said. I closed my laptop without saving my work. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it stop. Marcus watched me like the answer lived on my screen. They're calling, he whispered. An hour later, there was a knock. Not loud, not aggressive, just professional. Final. Marcus didn't move. I stood, every step heavy, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it through the door. Before I reached the handle, a voice came from the other side. Mrs. Johnson? I closed my eyes, because at that moment, I understood something Marcus never did. Keeping his secret hadn't protected him. It had only delayed the truth long enough for it to arrive at our door. I opened the door before Marcus could say anything. 2 officers stood on the porch, plain clothes, calm, prepared. Mrs. Johnson, one of them said, we're here regarding an investigation involving your husband. Marcus was behind me instantly. I want a lawyer, he said. The words came out fast, practiced, like he'd been rehearsing them in his head for weeks. The officer nodded. That's your right. Everything stopped after that. No questions, no explanations, just procedure. They told Marcus he needed to come with them to the station. Not optional, not negotiable. He turned to me then, panic flooding his face. They said they wouldn't come yet, he whispered. That was when I knew something else. He hadn't just been stealing. He'd been lying about how close the end already was. I'll call you, he said. I'll fix this. I didn't answer because there was nothing left to fix. They walked him out without handcuffs, but that almost made it worse. It meant this was just the beginning. The door closed behind them. The house was silent. No sirens, no shouting, just the sound of a life separating quietly. I went back to the kitchen. My laptop was still open. Work waiting. Bills were still due. A future I would now be responsible for. I sat down, closed the screen, and pressed my hands flat against the table. The secret he begged me to keep was gone, and so was the marriage that required. Marcus didn't call me from the car. That should have told me something. The first call came hours later. I didn't answer. By the time he arrived at the station, the fear had shifted into something sharper, reality. They fingerprinted him, took his belt, his watch, small things that made it clear he wasn't in control anymore. They sat him in a windowless room with a metal table bolted to the floor. The questions started fast. How long? How much? Who else? Marcus tried to explain. I was going to pay it back, he said. I just needed time. The detective listened without interrupting. Then Marcus said the wrong thing. I didn't think they'd catch it this soon. The detective stopped writing. That was when Marcus asked for a lawyer. The room went quiet. Minutes later, a man in a dark suit walked in, calm and unhurried, like this was just another Tuesday. He leaned close to Marcus and spoke low. You're done talking, he said. Not another word. Marcus nodded, too late to take back what he'd already given them. When the lawyer stepped outside, Marcus overheard enough to understand what was happening. Flight risk, ongoing investigation, access to funds, no bail. Marcus sat back in the chair and stared at the wall. For the first time since this began, there was nowhere left to run. They came to see me the next morning. 2 officers, professional, measured. They didn't sit. They didn't accuse me. Mrs. Johnson, one of them said, we need to confirm a few things. I told them what I did for work, that I worked from home, that my income was separate, that I had no access to his company's systems. When did you first become aware of your husband's actions? They asked. Recently, I said, and I told him I wanted no part of it. They nodded. They wrote it down. They didn't push. They didn't threaten. They thanked me for my cooperation and told me I might be contacted again. That was it. No cuffs, no raised voices, no drama. Just the quiet confirmation that I was not the one they were after. When they left, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the same place where everything had come apart. My phone buzzed. A voicemail. Marcus. I don't know what's going to happen, he said. They're saying I can't leave. They think I might run. His voice cracked. I never meant for this to touch you. I deleted the message, not out of anger, out of clarity. Some secrets don't just break trust. They rewrite your future. And I was done letting his choices decide mine. The news didn't break loudly. It leaked. A name mentioned in a hallway. A glance that lingered too long. A tone shift when people said, "How are you holding up?" That's how Camille knew. Marcus hadn't even been charged publicly yet, but the story was already moving faster than the truth ever does. Someone from his job had talked. Someone always does. By the end of the week, she stopped answering texts altogether. Not because she was ashamed, but because grief doesn't owe anyone updates. Her job was the one place that stayed steady. She logged in every morning like she always had. Same laptop, same kitchen table, same quiet competence. But even there, the secret found its way in. Her manager scheduled a quick check-in. No accusations, no suspicion, just concern. I want to be clear, her manager said carefully. This has nothing to do with your performance. Camille nodded. She'd already reviewed her own access logs, already double-checked her permissions, already documented everything she'd ever touched. People underestimate what women do quietly to protect themselves. There may be background noise, her manager continued. Questions. We wanted you to hear it from us first. Camille thanked her, not because she needed reassurance, but because professionalism deserves professionalism back. When the call ended, Camille sat still for a long time. This was the part no one prepares you for. Not the arrest, not the lawyer, but the way other people rewrite you based on someone else's choices. At the grocery store, a woman she barely knew hugged her too tightly. I had no idea, the woman whispered. Camille smiled politely. because having no idea had almost ruined her life, too. At night, the house felt different. Not empty, just honest. No waiting for keys in the door. No pretending everything was fine. Bills came due. She paid them. A letter arrived from the bank. She handled it. Her lawyer explained the next steps. She listened. She didn't collapse. She adjusted. And one afternoon, as she closed her laptop after a long compliance review, Camille realized something that startled her. She wasn't afraid anymore. Embarrassment fades. Whispers move on. But self-trust, once reclaimed, doesn't leave easily. Marcus called again. She let it go to voicemail. Not because she hated him, but because she finally understood this truth. Loving someone doesn't require sacrificing your future. The secret he begged her to keep had taken enough, and Camille Johnson was done paying for a life she didn't choose. The courtroom was colder than Camille expected, not temperature-wise, emotionally. Wood benches, muted colors, people whispering like this was just another Tuesday. For Marcus, it was the end of a life he thought he was controlling. Camille arrived early and sat in the back, not to support him, not to punish him, just to witness the truth. Marcus was brought in wearing a suit that didn't quite fit the way it used to. The confidence he once carried was gone, replaced with something brittle, fear stripped of denial. The charges were read clearly, methodically: employee theft, fraud, falsification of records. The amounts were higher than Camille had known. They always are. The prosecutor laid it out without emotion, how long it had gone on, how many transactions, how the company discovered the pattern. Intent was proven. Opportunity was documented. Excuses were irrelevant. Marcus's lawyer spoke next. He talked about stress, feeling overlooked, poor judgment. He mentioned family. Camille felt the weight of that word, not as a shield, but as a reminder of what Marcus had risked without her consent. Then Marcus spoke. His voice shook. "I never meant to hurt anyone," he said. "I was trying to fix things." Camille didn't flinch. She had learned the difference between regret and responsibility. The judge listened quietly, then leaned forward. "This wasn't a mistake," the judge said. "This was a series of choices." Silence filled the room. The sentence came down steady and final. Incarceration, restitution, no early release. Marcus was taken away without drama. No shouting, no collapse, just the sound of consequences walking forward. Camille stayed seated until the room emptied. She didn't cry. Grief had already passed through her in private. Outside, the air felt lighter, not because she was free of pain, but because she was free of uncertainty. Her phone buzzed, a work reminder, a deadline, life continuing. Camille walked to her car, unlocked it, and sat for a moment with her hands on the steering wheel. She thought about the woman she had been when this started, afraid, protective, willing to disappear to keep the peace. That woman didn't exist anymore. She started the engine, and for the first time since the secret entered her life, Camille drove forward without looking back. The divorce was simple, not because it didn't hurt, but because there was nothing left to argue about. Marcus signed the papers from a place Camille never visited, an orange jumpsuit in a room that smelled like disinfectant and regret. No apologies this time, no promises, just signatures. Camille read every page before she signed. That was the woman she had become. She kept the house for a while, not out of attachment, but because rushing felt like letting the chaos win. Eventually, she sold it. Too many memories of waiting by windows. Too many echoes of a life she had survived, not chosen. The promotion came quietly. No announcement, no applause. Just an email marked confidential. Her manager thanked her for her professionalism during a difficult season. Spoke about trust, reliability, leadership. Camille stared at the screen longer than she needed to. Not because she was surprised, but because for the first time, something good had arrived without costing her peace. The raise helped. The new title mattered. But what mattered most was this. She had been seen, not as someone's wife, but as herself. The relocation offer followed a month later. Optional, flexible, her choice. She chose a city no one associated with her past. Somewhere smaller, calmer, closer to the water. The house didn't empty itself. Camille went through every room. Closets first, then drawers, then boxes in the garage she hadn't opened in years. She sorted slowly. Things to keep, things to sell, things to let go of. The letters came last. Cards, photos, notes Marcus had written when love still sounded like promises instead of explanations. She didn't read them twice. She didn't cry over them either. She stood at the kitchen counter and fed them into the trash, one stack at a time, until the weight in her chest eased. Some things weren't meant to be carried forward. On moving day, Camille packed honest. What went into the truck were the things that belonged to her life now. Work files, clothes she chose for herself, books that steadied her. Everything else she let go. It wasn't loss. It was release. The first night in her new place, she sat on the floor with takeout and bare walls and felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Peace. Not the fragile kind, the kind that stays. She started walking in the mornings, journaling again, cooking meals that felt like care instead of obligation. She learned what she liked when no one else's needs came first. Some nights, loneliness showed up. She let it sit beside her without judgment, because loneliness wasn't failure. It was space, and space was where she finally met herself. Camille didn't rush into love again. She didn't need to. She had learned something far more important. Trust starts inward. The secret her husband begged her to keep had taken years of her life, but it had also given her something unexpected, a clean ending, a clear conscience, and a beginning that belonged entirely to her. Camille Johnson didn't lose everything. She kept herself.